Welcome back to MidPoint, everybody, and once again, welcome back former Florida Congressman. Republican Mark Foley joins us here in the studio. We have talked so much about what's happened in Paris. We're trying to bring it over to national security now, law enforcement. Let me ask you one question here, though, about immigration. How do we, because in Paris and what's going on in Paris and in France and a lot of Europe right now are almost little mini communities, little mini Muslim Islamic communities that are basically allowed to continue to foster. The government does not get involved. They create almost their own section, if you will. They don't integrate into the actual fabric of society there. How do we then, or should we here in America, try to have some control over immigration so that doesn't happen here without becoming a police state?
Open borders do lead to problems. This has been occurring for decades. In fact, this goes back to the Crusades, some of the antithesis of people's attitudes towards Christianity, towards Jews. But what we have to establish is law enforcement. We have to have strong borders. We have to protect who's coming in and what is their intent. And also, once they're here, monitor people. I don't like a nanny state any more than anyone else. I'm more of a libertarian, if you will, politically. But when it comes to Homeland Security, you can't err on the side of caution too much. You always have to do more. You always have to be thorough.
But then you're getting into civil liberties. You're getting into people who will say that you are basically taking away my civil rights. How do you then balance that?
Show them the clip of Paris and say civil liberties come at a cost. To protect them, you have to protect the lives of individuals. If you give everybody carte blanche and let them come to your country and foment and create dissent, create political paralysis, and are afraid to focus on it for somehow being called a racist or some other term, then you will dramatically see the escalation of attacks in streets. Can you imagine that happening in a mall in America? Can you imagine that kind of gunfire? Now it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't occur by American citizens who have a screw loose who go in and shoot up a building. It's happening, unfortunately. Attacks against police are occurring, and those aren't people from Islamist states. They're not people that are fomenting against the United States. But it's a similar dynamic. They're mad at law enforcement because they think law enforcement takes out its aggression on African Americans. So their attempt to seek justice is to go shoot a few cops while they sit in their car.
Okay, then how do we fix that? Because let's get to law enforcement. And we're opening up a tremendous amount of the Pandora's boxes here right now. But law enforcement has that problem right now. It's what I call arrogance towards cops. Many people just feel as if they can get away with anything against officers these days. But in sense, don't you also say that there are some bad cops out there? We got to weed these people out here in order to create an effective law enforcement that people still respect.
There are bad cops. I said this on this show a couple of weeks ago when you and I did a segment. But that doesn't mean the entire bunch is bad.
Exactly.
You've got to focus again on trying to provide a level of protection for the entire society, take out the bad guys if they are in fact there, respect civil liberties to a degree. My premise is strong enforcement requires strong measures. In the case we talked about, the Garner case, I think that was wrong. I think the cops were wrong there. Many of the other cases we're reviewing and have seen are absolutely on the side of law enforcement. But we shouldn't foment and focus on that one incident. In Paris, same kind of dynamic. Not every adherent of the Muslim faith is going to create a crime
Correct.
against an American. We've got to be very sensitive, not painting with a broad brush. But again, back to the premise of law enforcement, let's respect that. Let's make certain the laws work. But let's not let our guard down, because in this age of political correct behavior, we're afraid to do something to a group that may be angling to attack us.
So in all this, about 90 seconds we have left here, with regard to the 114th Congress that now gets to work, what is it that, in your opinion, they must do, they need to do, they have to do in order to better protect this nation, whether it's at the level of law enforcement or at the level of our national security?
I think, we're having a lot of talk about the pipeline, Keystone Pipeline. Gas is at $2.21. Okay, go ahead and pass your bill. Do it quickly. Let the president veto. Put that on the back burner and deal with it when we have a Republican president.
It's not important anymore. It's not as important as it used to be.
It's not as important.
Thank you.
The most important thing we have to focus on is the very threat that terror provides this country. Watching Paris, every lawmaker, whether they're on the Ag Committee or on Homeland Security, should be keenly focused on protecting the homeland. Nothing else matters. If you have a disastrous consequence like 9/11 again in the United States, economically, emotionally, spiritually, every kind of index you could use is upended. And so we spend time fighting on whether this member is going to serve on a committee because he may have voted for Boehner or against Boehner. Listen, get with the program, guys. You have a serious, serious responsibility and a serious challenge. Protect the homeland.
15 seconds left. Maybe the easiest thing is to go ahead and staple on everybody's head, eye on the ball.
Eye on the ball. Eye on the target. Protect America.
Do you have confidence that most members of Congress do have their eye on the ball today?
I think they have their eye on trying to get on TV for the wrong reasons. They need to get on TV to talk about how to make their communities safe. That's the #1 job.
I'm going to get you back to talk about that later on. Mark,
Thanks.
always a pleasure
Thanks,
to see
Ed.
you. Thanks so
Good
much
to be
for
with
joining
you.
us again. All right. Break, and we're back with tales of earthquakes, a pipeline that may now be completely useless as a fighting point, and some common sense in the climate change battle. When did you ever hear those words put together? It's right here where we question everything when MidPoint continues.